Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode number 134, I think. There's only two of us today. No guest, no special guest, unfortunately.
Special.
It's just me and Mr. Paul Bassett, because James is snowboarding again, and he's all over Facebook shoving that in everyone's face. Anyway, Paul, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I mean, it's you got the visions of actors before they go on theatre, and they're in their kind of their own space, psyching themselves up, and they've all got their own different ways of doing things. It's very much the before we press record and after we press record. Yeah. There's a mindset shift, isn't there? We're on stage now, aren't we, Peter?
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we were basically just moaning, and so.
It's been one of those days, put it that way. You mean I've been moaning?
No. I mean, it's usually my job to moan, and I think.
Well, we don't get a chance usually, so I thought I'd have a go.
I know exactly. He's got some open ground, really.
Yeah. What is good though? So, I'll say we'll get straight into it. We came onto this not really with any plan, and then we just had a quick chat before we started recording, and it was like, well, what's been going on, with us and our guys in their training. So, I mean, do you want to start, Paul, or do you want me to start? It's up to you.
Oh, I can start. I mean, what's been going on with my guys in training? I mean, the thing is I moved to a new studio. So the great thing about this is it's given me a chance to build the place around, well, two areas, really. It's just my own thoughts about what I want for my business, but also what my clients need, and it's been a chance to start fresh in many ways. It's like a spring clean, to have a think about actually what's useful for the clients. Obviously, we work to the parameters of the room. It's an odd shaped room, so it's not like a square box. So, which comes with its benefits as well. You think outside, you literally think.
What shape is it?
I mean, dodecahedron. I'm not quite sure. I mean, this is. I wish I could tell you, but I spent hours upon hours on my knees with a Stanley knife cutting rubber 20mm mats endlessly, because I work from the center outwards. That was the only way to do it. So it was very complicated doing all the angles. You couldn't just it was almost possible. So but I managed to do it.
One of my guys, a quick story about odd shaped rooms, right? One of my guys, I might still have the picture that I can send to you later. Yeah. But he's a fire safety engineer, and he does like massive projects like, the British Museum and Wimbledon and,
Is it wrong? I've got Keith Lard in my head.
Yeah. He's drawn a dog. It's kind of up there with that, actually.
Yeah.
A bit of Phoenix Nights for you there.
Yeah.
So he's a fire safety engineer and all that sort of stuff. And he was working on this, project. It was going to be a project, and he showed me the plans for it, right? And it was basically shaped like a big todger. It was hilarious. He just showed us it. He went, "Look at that," and I was like, "Is this the architect's like final ever job?" And he's like, "Right, sod it. I'm just going to do something ridiculous." It was so funny. I'll find it. I'll send it to you later. But it's
a bit like your T-shirt that you wore a few weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Carry on. Odd shaped room.
So training with my guys. So obviously I've got ideas of what I wanted to be able to work with my guys on, but then also just building it around them, and just so it's been great because since we've opened, we've really been able to go to town and work on skills, and it's I've always had themes every month that we work on different things each month. January was just getting into the room, just seeing how it worked, waiting for all the equipment to arrive. But in February we spent entire month working on deadlifts. Obviously, we work on lots of other things around it, but each session had some aspect of pulling a weight off the floor, and just giving people an opportunity to. I mean, I think it's quite easy when I work with clients, particularly, I don't know if it's a modern thing, people have short attention spans, and often they want variety.
Yep.
And they have inconsistency. And a month can sometimes feel like a pretty long time to work on something. And they're like, oh, deadlifts again. But actually at the end of it, they've actually developed a skill, and I think they really get the benefit of working on a couple of different moves and actually just seeing the numbers go up and get stronger. Because it's all well and good just doing random acts of variety, but it's really difficult to, and what I noticed, particularly in the past, maybe a year and a half ago, before we had this kind of focus and structure, is that people just didn't know if they were strong. So they knew they were consistent because they're showing up. They knew that they were definitely getting stronger, but they didn't know actually what that meant. So I started creating standards. So we created some standards for like percentage of body weight. And now I've got enough barbells for everyone. We tend to do a lot of stuff in pairs anyway, but we've got enough barbells for whoever's in the class. We can always just work on it, everyone's own personal goals. And so, for example, like the minimum target for a woman was 85% body weight for 1 rep. For a guy, it was 5 reps. And if you're a big guy, like 120 kilos, that's quite a significant first, particularly if you're a novice. We went right up to 150% body weight. And, it just gives someone a chance to maybe by the time we bring deadlifts back around again before the end of the year, they'll those who've stayed with us will see progress, and certainly they saw progress over the month. We're now doing pull-ups, which I've never been able to do as a standard, which is really difficult. I can do pull-ups, but I've never been able to do them in the class context because we just didn't have enough equipment to allow us to play. Things about pull-ups, they're either body weight or not.
Yeah,
you can
pull-ups
either not do them.
Pull-ups are really hard.
Yeah.
Unless you can do it without loads of equipment, but it's just harder. It's like there's I know what you mean.
I mean, most people are not strong enough anyway, let alone if you're one on the heavier side. So I've created different standards within the pull-up. So it allows us to work on pulls. So we've got a lat pull down. We can do rows with variety of machinings. I've got like a sled that people can pull with a rope. We've got hangs. You got so many different standards. There's always a different way of having success. And so it's been good in that sense. It gives us a lot of structure, and I like working to structure. I like giving myself limitations. God knows I've got enough myself, but but if I give myself a limitation to work within, it allows me to structure a class and have a theme and work on a quality, really.
Yeah, it's funny, like you're saying, like, just working on something for a month, and people get a bit bored with it. A month's not that long as well. When you're working on like strength work, you're looking at years.
Well, I'm doing
and I know
snatch.
most people won't look at it like that, and it's kind of more recreational, and it's fair, that's fair enough. But if you want to get truly proficient at something and strong and all of that, you've got to do a lot of it over a number of years. Yeah. Because
I do jerk and snatch on Monday, jerk and snatch on Wednesday, jerk and snatch on Friday. Sometimes I'll do press ups afterwards, jump squats, and a bit of cardio, and that's about my variety, really.
Well, yeah, I've been doing pull ups, pistols, and what are called presses for 2 years.
Almost sounds like too much variety for you.
Yeah. Three days a week for 2 years, and like. Well, a year.
You're all right at those things, aren't you now?
And I've got way better at them. Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? But
everything else gets easier when you get good at a couple of things, don't you?
Well, that's the thing. I started when I hurt my ribs a couple of months ago. I couldn't do a press because I couldn't rest my arm on my rib. I could do about 3 pull-ups before it hurt. So I just got into doing a few pull-ups. I couldn't do any presses. What else am I doing? Pistols. I could do pistols about a week after my body would allow me, but I had to drop the weight right down. And then I started doing assisted one-arm, one-legged push-ups because I could do them. I could do a horizontal. Which one's that one? A horizontal push.
Yeah,
but
not, press up.
I couldn't.
And stuff. Yeah,
and I could do a vertical push. I just couldn't rest my arm on my rib cage. So I started
doing
doing
stop
those.
Though, did you?
No, I started doing those one-arm, one-legged push-ups with like 2 fingers out of the side to support me, and they were relatively easy, and I hadn't done it for ages. But the whole body strength was there,
Yeah.
So yeah, everything is just way easier just from getting stronger at those few things. So there's like pistols as a full body movement when you're only using one leg. Pistol squat, pull up is a full body movement as well. And if you can't get your shoulder blades in the correct position, then you're not going to be doing pull-ups for very long because your elbows will start hurting and your shoulders will start to get sore and all of that sort of stuff. And then with presses, it's doing it the technique that I'm using is it's an all over body exercise rather than what would you call it? The difference. So it's not necessarily isolation. A movement. It's more of an exercise for the entire body. So it actually it makes it easier and easier to push heavier weight, but it also gets your entire body involved. So it makes everything else easier.
Well, it's interesting. Amazing. I mean, we sometimes get quite frequently. I don't know what this exercise isn't doing anything for me. I don't feel anything. Do you ever get that?
Yeah.
My facetious response would be, okay, let's put 50 kilos, 100 kilos on your back and see if you feel it. But it's what do you do when you encounter I can't feel anything? What's the point of this exercise?
What I do is I ask people to put their faith in me for a start.
That's a good way, yeah.
And then I'll say, right, remember you said that. Because they might be doing, it doesn't matter what it is they're doing. They'll be doing it with a way that in 3-4 months' time, they'll find it a hell of a lot easier. Or I'll just take a video of them doing it or something, or a picture and go, I'll just take a video of you doing it and I'll show you it in a couple of weeks or whatever. I was like, I'm not going to send it anywhere, use it for anybody. I'll show you in a couple of weeks. But I'll usually just tell them, when people are first starting out with me, I usually talk them through why we're doing an exercise, because you need to know why, right? And I have had a few people recently kind of like, well, is there any more variety than this? And I'm like, there will be in the future, because we can start to add variety once you've built the foundation of strength. And because if you just put variety in for variety's sake, then you don't necessarily get better at anything. You just end up doing more stuff and then burning out. Whereas if you strengthen a specific movement, then you get better at all the variety stuff anyway. It's kind of like you just add it in as a little bit of spice here and there, and the guys who've trained with me, and I use the guys who've trained with me for years as examples, so this guy started out and he couldn't use a weight in the beginning because he couldn't get into the position and his mobility wasn't very good and all that sort of stuff. So we had to work on that first before he could even pick up a weight and do a swing or anything like that. And then now look at him doing sets of 10 reps with a 28 kilo bell, pressing it above his head. Bosh, there you go. What more do you need to know? So yeah. I use them as examples, get the guys talking about it sometimes as well, and there's one guy who used to spend a few days every month in bed because his back was sore and he'd had like an operation on his spine and all this sort of stuff, and now that doesn't happen. So I'll, if someone mentions about, they've got a dodgy back, I'll be like, oh yeah, Craig, tell them about what life used to be like for you 6 or 7 years ago, so I kind of, if there is skepticism there, I'll not necessarily prove it by talking about it. I'll prove it by getting one of the guys to talk about it or give an example of why.
I think skepticism is a good word for it because I mean, I've recently it tends to a lot of the time we've spoken about it, after these podcasts where I don't see men continue with us off as frequently as women. So women make the bulk of our clients because they're more likely to stay on after initial programs. But I think sometimes that could be down to the fact that maybe women are maybe more likely to admit that they are skeptical about something and therefore perhaps need support. Because what I was talking about this with my wife, and I was saying, why am I struggling to get guys to continue? And she could have said it could just be a trust issue, So I use the example of like, okay, I'll talk to someone and I say, right, I'm going to click my fingers. You're going to lose 50 kilos in weight. I've had some people where they've needed to lose that much. Okay, you're going to lose 50 kilos straight away. I'm going to click my fingers. It's going to happen in the next 24 hours. It's guaranteed. I'm a genie. It's going to happen. But here's the thing. You're going to pay me 1,500 quid. Okay. Most people take it. They would take it.
Yeah.
They would. I mean, why would you not? Okay. So I'm going to get to a great body shape. I'm going to be the weight I want to be. And it's going to happen. Right. Okay, great. So, but it's going to cost me 1,500 quid. I'll find it. I'll find the money. Right. Yeah. I'll find the money. So then you say, right, you sit down with someone, you say, okay, it's going to be 6 months. We're going to get you down 50 kilos. It's going to be 300 quid a month, whatever you're charging, 400 quid, 500 quid, whatever the trainer charges. You're going to be paying this each month, and you're going to lose 50 kilos, but you've got to do this, you've got to do this, and you've got to attend this many times. And it's going to happen because I know it happens. I've seen, trajectories that are very similar to yours. But obviously there's a chance of failure, and there's going to be good reasons why people succeed and why they fail on their journey. So then the question that becomes one of trust, doesn't it? And one of skepticism. Are you skeptical in me as a trainer? Do you think I can get you there? Maybe you don't trust my system, or you don't trust yourself. Now, I have great belief that I can get the result. So then the question comes, do you truly believe that you will? And maybe that's why people aren't willing to do it. It's because they don't actually believe deep down that they will focus for the amount of time it takes, and they are not willing to be uncomfortable for that 6 months in which that change would happen. Because when I've worked with people I've got a couple of ladies who they just signed up, did a 6-month program, paid in full, bang. They're making loads and loads of changes, and they're seeing steady changes in the direction they want to go. So they're just showing up each week and each day, booking calls, training, doing the nutrition plan. I think they had no doubt that they were going to follow a program. They enjoyed the classes and they thought, well, I'm willing to do this. And I think often it's just there's some skepticism there that this is going to happen. I don't know if that's what you experience.
Yeah, I would say so, because it's interesting that, because I think it's people not necessarily trusting themselves. And also, if they've tried everything, they're like, why would you be any different? Which is fair enough. It's fair enough to think that, right? But I've just written down here, if someone said it's going to cost you 1,500 quid and you can take this pill and you'll lose 50 kilos, you'll wake up tomorrow morning and you're 50 kilos lighter. People are going to be all over that because it's paying the money for the result and it'll happen. And you don't need
you'd
to
be
do
charging
anything.
3 times the amount for that.
Yeah, but you don't need to do anything.
You don't need to do anything.
But you could charge 1,500 quid over, I don't know, 6 months. I mean, you're not going to lose 50 kilos, are you? But, yeah,
I mean, just using an example. But
say you charge 300 quid a month, that's 5 months for the same amount.
Yeah.
That's right, isn't it? Yeah, 1,500 quid. So 5 months. So you're going to get a decent result in 5 months.
Well, you could lose 30 kilos.
You're going to have to turn up 3
months.
times a week. You're going to have to eat well. You're going to have to track your calories, eat more protein, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, for that money, that sounds like a hell of a lot of work. Even though you're paying for someone's expertise and for someone to make sure you come along and you get the result. It's the if I pay that, am I gonna be the person who will turn up and do it?
Am I going to be that person? Yeah.
Or do I just want to stay where I am?
Because one's just a transaction, isn't it?
Yeah.
One's just a transaction and an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is a transaction with an active participation.
I mean, we see it, right? I've been looking at that this week. We weren't going to talk about this because I didn't even mention it before we started recording, but it's easier to not do something than to do it, right? It's just easier to say, right, I want to lose 50 kilos. But when you see what's involved, which is what puts people off, and then they go and then you're like, oh, do you know what? Actually, it's not as bad as I thought. I'll just stay where I'm at. And I've seen this a lot in the past, and I don't do it anymore, but I've been taken down the route of, promise someone like a quick result because that's what everyone wants. And if you don't promise
do you sell the dream,
Yeah, people see that there's work involved and then they won't buy off you. And I'm like, I don't want someone to come to me who thinks they're going to get that fast result. Because then when they don't get it, they lose confidence in me because they don't get it as fast as they want it. And it'll put them off doing something in the future. And also it'll be someone who won't necessarily be committed to it because they just want that quick result. If I've got someone and I've made it known to them, like, look, it's going to be some effort. You're going to have to turn up 3 times a week, but I'm going to make it worth your while to turn up 3 times a week. I'm going to make it enjoyable as well. You're going to be doing like the same stuff over and over again, probably, but we're going to be chatting about it. Like I had a chat to a guy today whose head wasn't in the right place today. So we just ended up talking about mindset stuff because it was just me and him. In the first half of the session, and he's only just beginning as well. So in the first half of the session, I was trying to show him some stuff and it just wasn't getting it. And he was getting really frustrated. And there was some people next to us listening to music, like banging music as well.
Right.
And some kids sitting there listening to banging music. And you could see him looking over and it was doing his head in. And then the second half of the session, we just had a chat. We started talking about mindset and just general stuff. And the second half of the session was great. And he didn't do loads of exercise. And then I was like, just do some swings, some goblet squats, all easy stuff. And he was like, it wasn't going in today. So, and I was like, that's fine. You've turned up, you've shown up. And that's the minimum requirement right now. And then I said, I was talking about this earlier. I said, what you've just done today, a few swings and goblet squats with like a 16-kilo bell. I got him to do some like scapular push-ups because he's had a dislocated shoulder in the past and he's rehabbing that and all of that. Or we are rehabbing that. And then, like I said earlier, I said to him, remember this day, because I'll remember it and I'll tell you about it in the future. But in three or 4 months' time, when you turn up and you're having a rubbish day, because it'll happen, and we do something easy because you're depleted and mentally depleted, and so therefore physically can't be bothered, sort of thing. So we'll just do something easy. And I said we'll be using a 24-kilo bell or something. We'll be doing like a couple of presses, a few push-ups or something like that, which is more than you're doing today. So you'll be doing on a day that you're not at your best more than you're doing like today. But then next week I'll remind him of that because we'll be doing some stuff and I'll be like, it'll be kind of remember what you're doing now because you get tired doing this.
Yeah.
And then in 3 or 4 months' time, you'll be doing stuff with heavier weights and you'll be doing more on the day that you don't feel as good as you do today. So actually, that benefit is massive, mentally, physically, everything. It's huge. And if once you can get people to kind of realize that and realize the benefit of just coming along, even if they don't feel great, just coming along, it's like, we might not do loads and loads of like physical activity and just have a chat.
Yeah.
And then, you've had the social interaction, you've had the chat, and then you've got out of your own head. Because if you stay at home, you'll just end up dwelling on whatever it is that's stopping you turning up.
Yeah, you've just got to take action on a daily basis, even if it doesn't feel very productive. It will be in the big grand scheme of things. I mean, not every workout's great, is it?
No. And
not
actually,
every day at work is one where you make 1 million sales or you crack a code for something that's spectacular.
Yeah. Well, I do mindset stuff. I do two calls a week with the guys as well in the evenings, Tuesday and Thursday evening. There's 3 of the guys are on that. 2 of my online guys and 1 guy who I train in person comes to that. It's open to everybody else, but not everyone comes along because they don't think they need it, right? Which is fine. So I don't really push it. I just mention it here and there. And then if they want to come along, like, the videos are all, we'll talk on Zoom video and we'll chat about stuff. And if not, I'll do a presentation on something or whatever. And it's all about just keeping the head in the right place. Not necessarily about training as well, just about life in general, right? But then that keeps them coming along to training, which also helps because then it's building resilience and it's the positive thing of turning up when you said you were going to and all of that. So this guy is in that, but he's new. So I haven't been pushing that because it's more of the mindset stuff and people don't even know that they need it. And it's more of the, so he's been coming along to the physical training bit. and that's all been good. And he's lost a little bit of weight, which he wanted to do, and his shoulder's getting better and all of that. But then today, as we were chatting about that, I said, do you know that group that you're in, that I put you in, have you watched any of the videos? And I don't know if he has. And I was like, but that's what that is for, exactly what we've been talking about today. And he found it really interesting. So then I've got a document, which is like what you do for the first 50 days in there. And to go back through some of the videos and look at what we've talked about, that was a kind of overarching thing of what most people have to deal with. And then, so that's only just happened today. So I'll be able to update with what's happened with that in the future. But I know it's worked for the other guys on a mindset wise, just keeping them turning up. And then what's been interesting is over the last month or so, it's been quite mundane. The chats haven't been mundane, but it's like, any questions? And they're like, no, everything's kind of going really well. Everything's fine. It's like, right, brilliant. And then we end up having a chat about stuff anyway. Like a little problem that someone might be having with training or just anything, but that's not really that bad. So there's no big issue. But then, this happened this week. We'll turn up on a call and someone will be like, oh man, I've fallen off the rails. And it's like, right, okay. Here's where that's why we're here. And that's why we need to deal with it. Because when it's all going well, that's great, but you still turn up with the chats because it keeps you going and keeps that resilience. And then if you do fall off the rails, you get straight back on again. Because you're here talking about it. So therefore we're all here to talk about it. And that's another problem with blokes. I'm trying not to generalize, but I mean, that it tends to be the age-old problem with men, isn't it? That you just don't talk about stuff.
No.
So we're there to talk about it. And it's like, if you want to talk about training, we'll talk about training, but it's not really all about that, is it? And the guys who are in there get it. This guy today got that as well. Yeah. So hopefully he'll start turning up to the calls. And it's kind of trying to build that out, and that's now added on to my service because it helps me keep my own head in the game and learn about what is holding the guys back, and then I'm going to provide a better service. So I think that's one of the things, and then it gets them to trust themselves more and realize why some days they don't want to turn up to training, and that's it's not really their fault because that's what happens with everybody. So that's kind of that puts that bit into it, rather than just saying you have to turn up 3 times a week. Because not even like, there's a couple of guys who don't do that. There's one particular guy, I get them to put in every Sunday when they're going to show up. And he puts in 3 days, turns up on a Monday, and then cancels the rest. Like as on the day.
Yeah, I have some chronic cancelers.
Yeah. So I'm going to chat to him about it, but there's something going on there, so.
Yeah, it's difficult to know. I have clients, I have some that have been with me a while and they just can never seem to get them consistent. They seem to get value because they wouldn't be, they wouldn't still be there. But it's difficult to know what's going to take them from someone who has the intention to be active. Like I say, I think it's important to almost try and talk people out of doing it. And so they actually, it's like I had a lady today who was just inquiring, and I was like, it sounds like you could do this yourself, really, isn't it? Why not just do it yourself? And she's, and it turned out she just, the only reason she would go with us is just to speed things up because she could probably do it herself. And I said, well, then have a think. It's going to cost you this much. I can get this done in this time frame, roughly. I think, I believe so. If you're the kind of willing person, I said, well, you need to think about it before you make a decision, because it's going to be a matter of speed. It's not a question of whether or not it can't be done. I mean, it sounds like you could probably do it yourself. But then it's just going into it. If they know, I think that's what I want to fill my gym up with is people who actually, it's not that I don't feel, I feel that I have to persuade, I'm not persuade people to work with us. I'll prove that they should work with us by virtue of doing our program. And each time they show up, hopefully getting some value out of it, but they've got to prove it to themselves, really. And I think you probably want to work with people who actually want to be there,
So this is interesting. I had a conversation in a mastermind group that I'm in the other day. And one of the guys in there was saying, basically, he says to people when they start working with him, he's like, you don't need me because you can do it yourself. Because everyone can do it themselves because they can. It's like, you don't need me, but
Well, why pay me more money when you can pay Pure Gym 25 quid?
No, exactly. So, but so but that's like a really interesting way to get the point across to someone. Is like, you don't need me, but then the person is then in the head thinking, well,
you work with Paul McElroy, don't you?
Yeah.
So you probably had to sell yourself to him.
No, I didn't, because we'd had him on the podcast and we'd had a chat anyway. So
no,
I did,
but in the sense that you had to prove that you were the kind of person that if he was to send a weekly plan to, you would do.
Oh yeah.
Totally. Because it become quite. I'm not sure he would really want to be working with you if he was chasing you up every day.
I don't know, because
I don't imagine
I send him the
many
stuff
clients
religiously. I send him it every week.
So, I doubt he's got many clients who he's chasing up saying, have you done your workout this week?
Yeah.
Have you done the workout? I mean, he sent me reminders occasionally. He's more because of the faff of uploading stuff. It just, but I doubt there's many people who weren't like, okay, there's a goal, I'm going to do it, I'm going to prove that I'm doing the workouts. So in a way, it's like, well, I'm not going to work with you if you're not going to show up.
Yeah, totally. But the thing with this is, when this guy was saying, like, you don't need me, the person's then in their head thinking, you're right. However, I'm not going to do it on my own, because I haven't. Otherwise, I would have done. Exactly. We've spoke about that before. It's like, I would have done.
It's a question that has to be asked, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, but then what happens is that's like a bold move to say that to someone, because it's like, you don't need me, so why would you buy me to help you get to where you want to be? But that is brilliant, because it's basically saying to the person, you're going to be doing this.
Yeah.
I'm going to help you get there, but you're going to be doing the work.
Well, it's also a question that will be asked at some point.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
it's
then
going to
what
come
happens
up at some point. So it might as well be asked at the beginning.
Yeah. But then what happens is, that's when you get commitment from someone. Actually, do you know what? You're right. And it is, I am going to do this. And then you end up getting the right people, because when they do get the result, they see the value in it. They know they could have done it on their own, but you help them get there. And then they want to stay, because the value's there, and they see it and they enjoy it. And then they're like, actually, do you know what? I don't need you, but I'm going to stay because it's great. And I've got guys like that who come to me. It's interesting, actually. I've got guys like that who come to me who say, if they didn't come 3 days a week to see me in person in a group, they wouldn't do it on their own at home, because they need the group.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant. That's like, right, well, there's the value for you. The value isn't like necessarily the program. The value is the social interaction with a bunch of people who are all doing very similar thing with very similar goals. And it's hanging around with people with similar values, and it just makes you feel better. And that's where the value lies, and it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I run a 28-day program, but I run it more because it's an opportunity to make connections.
Yeah.
So if I can have more conversations, I can find. It's not about. I mean, yes, I want a bigger business, but I want to get in front of more people so I can weed out the people that I want to work with. Mm-hmm. If I have more people in front of me, then I can make better decisions about who I work with as much as anything. So I can ask them more. I'm allowed, if I can get 10 inquiries a day, then I can make 10 conversations or get hold of 7 of them. And one of them may be suitable, and that allows me then to surround myself with people I want to be around, people who I think are actually going to get the value out of what we do. And then they're more likely to have a better relationship with us as well. But it's not easy to do that, because you always hope that someone's going to. There's a lot of hope in fitness, isn't there?
Yep.
Whether it's as a trainer or whether it's as a client, you're always hoping that you're going to get the outcome, or you're hoping you're going to get more clients, or hope, and that only gets you so far, doesn't it? It's powerful.
Yeah. So the way I go into it with people now is, I don't even think we're going to work together. Let's have a chat.
And you're trying to put them off. You don't wash. You swear at them.
Yeah, but no, it's like, let's just have a chat and we'll see what happens. And then if the conversation goes in a good direction and we get on and all that, then Yeah, why not? It's because
It
I
turns
talk
you
to the,
from a someone providing exercise classes to a coach.
yeah, exactly. And I talk to the guys about it all the time. And it's like, I don't want, because it changes the energy, especially in person. It changes the energy of a session. If there's someone there who doesn't quite fit, or is, a bit more like, I mean, it's hard work, helping someone get to where they want to be. But if someone's just like, just not committed to it, doesn't want to be there, or like say they don't want to be there, but like, oh, you'll give them an exercise. It's like, I don't want to do that. I want to do this instead. And I had someone like
I've
that
had
recently.
that, yeah.
I had someone like that recently, and I was getting to go to the sessions, and I was just like, I don't want to go today. I don't want to go today. And it's fortunately that person left, and that's why I'm. And I tell that, and like people when they turn up, the new guy who I was talking about today was asking about that, and he said, "Do you get a lot of people who come along and then drop off like very quickly?" And I said, "Do you know what? Not really, because those sorts of people are going to drain my energy, which makes it harder for me to do my job, which makes it harder for everyone else in the group, and it's not really a value that I want in as part of my business. Like the business has got values of." Like showing up, knowing yourself, making it your own, being part of the team, being part of the community, communication, all of that. It's all about that.
Well, that's why I tell people about the price of the program when in the first 5 minutes of the call now. I never used to. I used to put it near the end. It's because I don't really want the conversation about money, because, if it's too expensive, then it's going to be too expensive. And I might get that out of the way, and then we can have a proper conversation. We can have a conversation about actually what someone wants, and they may have in the back of the head that it's either the top end of their budget or the bottom end, or they don't even care about it or whatever. But at least it's done, and then we don't have to drop it, because then people's guard goes down. So then they're like, right, okay, I know what it's going to cost me. There's nothing hidden. Right, it's going to cost this. Okay, I can tell you actually what I want, and then it's a question of like, I just ask them at the end of the conversation, what do you want to do?
Yeah. Totally.
And then they'll turn around and say, come in. And so I'm sort of like saying, so would you like to come in and sign up for my program? In the end, that's not my decision.
Yeah.
It's my decision whether or not I kind of ask them that final question, what would you like to do? Because I would just turn around and say, actually, I don't think I can help you. But then at least I think that's it. I think it's like you've got to guide someone to make their own decisions at every single point in the way, and making that decision not an overly complex procedure. So if there's a series of I think what I realized as a coach, you're making a kind of a ladder or a staircase of small decisions that lead them to their goal, so that they at every point they are making the empowered position themselves. You're not telling them what to do. You're telling them the options that they might have, and then they can decide within that framework what's best for them, whether it's a yes, no, or left, right, whatever, heavier, lighter, step back on the nutrition, lean into it, whatever it is, show up when they're tired, take a day off. All those things are going to be their decisions. You've just kind of given them a framework in which they feel confident to make the decision. And I do the same when they first speak to, I'm hoping, when they first speak to them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because you see a lot in sales tactics in that, overcome objections and convince people that they need you and blah, blah, blah. And all this.
Yeah. I don't really like objection handling.
You can't do that, right? So
I had an interesting experience of objection handling. I was doing a kind of sales training thing. And, one of the things was to deal with someone who was asking for price, right? It's like, and so everyone was doing these price objections, and then it was my turn, and then, and they said, well, what level of kind of difficulty do you want? And I said, just give me an 8 out of 10, And so immediately they say, how much is it? How much is it? How much does the program cost? How much does the program cost? And so what I tried to do was try and ask a question. But then the sales trainer came in and said, just answer the question. How much is it? And I just suddenly thought, in the middle of this call, I thought, like, how the hell have I got myself in a situation? So someone's barking at how much is it at me? What have I done? Like, I know that they just came in on that, but why am I trying to maneuver myself out of a situation like that? Because I've got myself into it. So the question then becomes like, how do I even avoid being into that? I don't even want to have a conversation about how much is it, justifying the cost per class, blah, blah, blah. I'm not interested in that, because then I'm not talking about solving the problem. I'm just talking about, I'm bartering between how much something costs and how much it doesn't. So it's either going to cost you something or it's not. And my price is not negotiable. And so it's just like, do you want to have a solution? If not, then there's no conversation. If it is yes, then it's a question of working out if I like you and you like me, and if you feel I can support you. And then that's what the conversation is about. It's not about like barking price objections and then playing like some kind of weird fencing game where it's like, I've outwitted you. And I have done that in the past as I'm learning, because as much as I wanted to be a trainer, you end up trying to sell programs, but then you create the relationship wrong. And I've made mistakes like that in the past. And I just thought, well, why? I don't even want to be in a situation where that is even conversation anymore.
Well, that's where it comes in. I mean, the neurology of all of this comes into this, because like I was going to say about the objection handling thing and everything, you can't convince someone to do your program. It doesn't fight. It doesn't work. So, because if you look at it from a neurological standpoint, your brain listens to you and only you, right? Someone else can be telling you what's good for you, what's not good for you, what you should do and what not to do. And that's just words going into your ears. You see the person saying it, they're saying it, you hear those words go in, but words are just noise, right? So those words are just noise, because your internal monologue, no matter what someone's telling you, your internal monologue is telling you what you want it to tell you.
I think it's very rare that I've ever told someone a solution to something that they've done.
Yeah, but just let us finish my thought here, will you? I tried to start this about 5 minutes ago, and you keep putting me off track. So your brain only listens to you, right? So someone else is like telling you something, and that's words. If your brain is telling you the same thing, you'll agree, and that's fine. And then you'll crack on, and everything's fine. But if someone's telling you, you need to count calories and eat more protein and do some weights and all that sort of stuff, and you're just like, no, I don't. I just need to go running more and burn more calories or something like that. You're just going to do that and go, do you know what? I don't want your program, because I don't want to have to lift weights and track my macros and all this sort of stuff. I'll just go running. And then they're just going to do that. Right. And this is where being a coach comes in, obviously, because being a coach, you've got to then, like you just said, you've got to then just get people by asking people questions and draw it out of them, because the answer is always within the person of what do you want? What have you tried to get there? I'm just going to go running or whatever. And it's like, but have you tried that before? Yes, I have. What happened? And then they end up, because then if you can kind of like almost agree with the objection, someone's like, I can't do that because, and you're like, no, I totally agree, because if you could do it, you'd have already done it, wouldn't you? And then you're agreeing with them, and then you become they're in their mind, you're now saying what they're saying. Do you know what I mean? So then it's more likely to gel with them. And then, this will happen over like the relationship of the coaching, relationship. But the more questions you ask, and the more you get them to draw it out of themselves, that's when a belief will change. And then like internally, might start talking to themselves differently and telling themselves different things, because they've heard you say it over and over again. And then it's actually been heard. So then it goes in, which is why, you can tell someone something and then they go and do the opposite. And then you can tell them again and they go and do the opposite. And it might take a year for them to finally go, do you know what? You were bloody right about that. But that's because they've told themselves that is the way to do it, because your brain will only listen to what you tell it, and it'll believe it to be absolutely true, the absolute truth, until you tell it something different. And then it'll believe that to be the absolute truth. So that's where that battle can happen, And then, you know, even if you, even like, not you, but even if, you know, a great salesman then ends up saying to someone, I got a yes out of them and they've bought it, you get, you know, you'll get buyer's guilt. Is it buyer's, not guilt, buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse, sorry. And then they're like, well, I've bought this thing, but I don't bloody want it now. And that's going to be a nightmare if you're going to work with someone for 6 months, isn't it? So that's the way I come at it now. And I just basically leave it with people. So like I say, that's one of the values of my business, basically, of all the coaching that I do, is know yourself and make it your own. Because unless you've got those two things, you're going to be fighting a cognitive battle. It'll be cognitive dissonance. You'll be telling yourself one thing while you're trying to do something else. Whereas the guys now, they pretty much turn up on autopilot, especially the guys who come at 7 a.m. on a Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. They basically get out of bed, get here. You know, when you drive to work, they're like that. They like turn up and they're like, oh, morning. They don't even remember getting out of bed and doing it. They just do it automatically.
That's the scariest thing when you're on the motorway and you don't realize you've gone about 2 junctions. You have no memory of doing it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've been looking into this, and this has made every conversation I have with people much easier. Because I'm not trying to, because I have in the past, you know, it's like, oh, just, you know, keep them talking, keep convincing, blah, 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 all this. And it's like, no, if they want it, they want it. And if they don't, they don't. There's not really that much more you can do about it, unless you can demonstrate to them that they are capable, and they can tell themselves that. And that's basically coaching. Coaches don't tell people what to do they? I mean, like, you know, in training wise in a coaching program, the actual weights you lift and all that is based around what your central nervous system tells you anyway. So that's like, do this. And that's fine. But getting the person to turn up to do it, getting them to eat well, all of that sort of stuff, that is down to the actual person. So coaching is just
stimulus and feedback, isn't it?
Yeah, it's letting the person realize that they can do it for themselves, which comes back to that whole point of the guy who I was talking about, and kind of the way I'm going down now as well, is to say to people, you don't really need me because you can do it yourself.
Well, I think in a way, an interesting way of looking at it is what kind of conversation are we having? But I think coaching is essentially a conversation, isn't it? Because whether it's coming up with programming numbers for a workout, that's a conversation. That's a conversation between the reality of what you've done and lifted and how your technique is held up versus the inputs that you give it. So as you're coaching, you have an idea of where you want to take someone, but then based on that conversation of that individual's ability to express your programming, you have to make adjustments based on that. And that's coaching, isn't it? It's coaching is I've seen their last video in the set of 10 presses, and I can see the form breakdown. So I'm not going to progress them at this point. I'm going to hold them on the same weight, or I'm going to push them further because that looked easy. So it is a kind of it's always a kind of a numerical representation of the feedback from the body. And it's the same when it comes to food or attendance and business coaching, things like that. It is that conversation that they have, and just kind of giving the right amount of information. It sounds like it's reactive, but it's not really reactive. It's because there is the stimulus. So you've got to put the stimulus in. Mm-hmm. You've got to listen to the reaction, make a judgment on what the next stimulus is going to be. So you're always kind of creating a stimulus based on the reaction. It's kind of a kind of interesting loop, isn't it? Well, that's what I think.
Totally. Do you know what? I reckon that's a good place to finish.
It is. And we didn't even get anything controversial in. There was no expletives.
Not that I know of.
No. Do we want to insult someone in the last minute?
Yeah, we're going to insult James, can't we?
Yeah, exactly. He's got away. He's got free this time. Well, no, there was a little dig at the beginning.
A little dig because he's gone snowboarding again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloody outrageous, isn't it?
It's all his posts. There's either skiing, cinema, a new piece of equipment he's got, his meals. Look at my meal. Look at my meal. Look at my meat. Lovely steak on it and some cheese and sausages.
Speaking of which, I'm going to go and eat now because I'm hungry.
Yeah. I might just do the antithesis of him. Just me sitting in my studio, not on holiday.
Yeah.
Not having some meal that looks amazing. Just something slapped on a plate.
Yeah.
not being at the cinema. Every time he does it, I'm just, where is Paul? Not at the cinema.
Not at the cinema, watching telly.
Exactly. Yeah.
There you go.
Doing something.
Anyway, right. Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you all. I hope you got something out of this. Because it's quite funny because I can't even remember what we spoke about and we've literally just stopped. But
It's inspirational.
Yeah, a nice stream of consciousness there for you. So yeah, if you like this episode or indeed the podcast, please like, share. If you think it'll help anyone, share it with them. We've got the Facebook group. Just type in Health Oddity into the Facebook search bar and you'll find it there. Please, leave a review if you can on whatever platform you're listening to us on, or if you're watching on YouTube or anything like that. But again, thanks for listening and watching. If you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate you all and we'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.